happy lives and age well in supportive, sustainable communities. We work with communities and partners at local community South Gloucestershire Place and wider health and care system level to recognise and reduce inequalities and provide accessible and compassionate services. This will help us to do our best for our communities and support people to lead their best, healthiest lives and reach their full potential.
Thank you, Tasha. I want to share a piece of work with you that brings some of what Tasha's just been describing to life, so you can hear about things that are happening in one of our primary care networks, particularly based around one of our. So there is a weekly community gardening project going on there for patients in practice and also for other residents, the wider community, the people living locally. It supports well-being and it helps to develop the community. People attending are aged between 16 and 84 and they come from a wide range of backgrounds. Some have dementia, some have limited mobility, most are socially isolated, and they're reconnecting through their growing flowers, growing vegetables, their cups of tea, and for having that shared activity that they come to weekly. We're building on individual people's strengths, and 93% of the people attending all of the gardening groups, there are several in South Gloucestershire, report this illustrates some of the work that's going on in our local communities. Some of our ambitions around our local communities are about hyper-local voluntary sector organisations. They're often the groups that have the voice of local people and they bring that with their work, they bring that into their work and they are key to building on individuals. We have some new posts funded by the Locality Partnership and by the Keep It Local strand of work through South Gloucestershire Council to support that wider reach into local communities, and so they will become closer to developing integrated health that we're doing through the Locality Partnership. Their voice will be heard and the voice of local residents will be heard. In addition, we're looking at what the future holds, particularly for this coming winter. So there are very lively sessions going on at the moment, meetings happening this week with representatives from different organisations looking at what we need to do collectively. So those kinds of people from the local activities.
So what we're doing differently now as integrated care team, well, within our community mental health, we're working together as integrated personalised care teams. These teams are constituted of professionals from our mental health trust, adult social care, community services provider, Mighty Minds, DHI, Southern Books and GP practices. These teams meet weekly primary care networks to discuss any clients needing a non-professional perspective to their health, mental health or well-being needs, making sure we adhere to one determinants of health. The defining element of this new approach is a commitment to strengthening relationships at the BCN level, building a culture of support and respect between practitioners, facilitating a deeper understanding and shared understanding of risk to improve the personalised care for the individual. What's our ambition over the next year as integrated care teams? Well, we have an ongoing programme of work across children and young people's mental health, led by seniors, executive This work is funded by the South Austria Development Fund, which was jointly resourced by the local authority and the CCG. The system. At system level, we have developed strong relationships with the Health and Wellbeing Board, and through this partnership, we have set local healthcare authorities jointly. As chairs and delivery directors of locality partnerships, we are connecting on a regular basis to share learning, promote successful ideas, and work as we can as our partnerships are emerging. Also, our shared challenge. A lot has changed for us all in a relatively short period of time. At the forefront of our minds is the cost of living and energy crisis, and the plan and the impact on the health and well-being being considered across all of our programs of work. We're planning for winter pressures, which we know is in the short term ahead. Whilst also navigating the complexities of system-wide transformation and service delivery across a large landscape. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Tasha and Alison. That's excellent. I think you give us really good synopsis of what you've been trying to do in South Gloucester. Can I just ask if anybody's got any questions they'd like to ask before we move on to the next item? Dominic.
And having that voice come through the system is important, but recognising that there will be challenges for partners who provide services for the region of RICS, and that is a new challenge. It's not one organisation with one organisational sort of delivery plan. This is multiple organisations, multiple pressures. So we're fully cognizant of that, and I think this is where we've spent the last year building my view on that is actually listening to the voices on the ground and hearing from them where they feel those inequalities are. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier on, the sort of system, information and its use of the systems don't tend to pick up some of those inequalities particularly well, maybe because we're not fully aware.
So big thank you, I know you're busy people. I really appreciate the time. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone. If you can move back to the agenda, minutes of the meeting of the 1st of July. Those are for approval. Is there anybody with anything they'd like to raise around those minutes from the 1st of July from those who were there? No? Happy to approve them. Anyone who's not happy to approve them? Okay, thanks very much. If I can move to the matters arising then. Most of these have been covered off. So I think the first four that you can see on the agenda there have been closed. There's a couple that are open. The first one around the purpose names of the new chain. That's still open, but I know you're on to that, Shane. I don't know whether you want to speak about it.
Two things. One, the overall approach to taking the big compensation, the partnership there, etc., all part of supporting those views. The other thing is there's considerable work going on with the healthcare professionals group, and Rosie and Joe in the middle of that. BCSE, a massive amount of work going on behind the scenes, working with the best way everyone can be sector involved thinking, and then a huge amount of citizens' voice as well, and lived experience voice being on board. So we can bring those all together, Chair. We can certainly bring them next board meeting, that would be helpful, so that the board can appreciate those three channels and how we're bringing those voices into the decision making.
Thanks, Shane. The next item on the actions was for myself around the non-exec directors. We've got a deep dive session next week to look at this in a bit more detail. We've had those brilliant conversations, and you will hear some of that as we move to the items on the updates from the chairs of the committees. So I think that's probably dealt with. Any questions from anybody around those two actions before I move us on? No? Okay, thank you very much. The next item was around the diary markers. Sarah, anything to add on that one? It's the confirm send diary markers for all ICB committees. Okay, thank you. And then the final one, consider platform for ICB members to network outside of meetings, i.e. board packs, NHS futures functions. So there's an update on the minutes on that one, Sarah, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to it. No? Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I'll move us on to the Chief Exec's report, Shane.
Thank you very much, Chair. Colleagues, you will have the paper, you've read the paper, and therefore I don't intend to go through it line by line, but I've tried to call out three large areas that we I feel it's important to share with the board. The first is where we are in terms of structures and recruitment. The second is winter planning, and the third is then the public engagement element of building a strategy. So you'll see from the paper with regards to senior executive recruitment, the process we went through to try to really think about what is the role and function of the ICB as an organisation. We talked a lot this morning in closed session, we'll talk a lot more about the ICB being a partnership, but within that partnership there is an organisation that is called the Interim Care Board, and therefore it's a structured Interim Care Board. And really looking at the four key functions of that organisation. It's about strategy, it's about innovation development, it's about delivery when itself is on the ground with our partners, and then performance management, review and improvement. That led me to the point where we were saying, well actually, if you take those four areas, what does the organizational structure needs to look like? And you can see from the paper where we came to in that. And very clearly what you can see from the paper, therefore, is the position we found ourselves in now, which I'm very happy with, is that we've got our four delivery directors. So we've got, you see, we've got in terms of partnership and strategy, we've got performance management, etc. You can see from the paper at page 28 and 42 how the thing ends up looking. I think what's really important for the board then on page 29 is an understanding of the function within each of those roles. And I think that's very important from a partnership perspective. So for example, Joe, you mentioned to me about where does SEND fit now, where does special education fit now, or where does it learning disability. You begin to see the structure we're building within the organisation, which would allow us all to understand who does what and how we pull the whole thing together. Where we are at the moment is we've now been through a recruitment process. I'm happy to say that all but one of those roles has been filled. So you can see on page 30 of 342, all of the roles that have been filled. I'm delighted. You can see many of those people around the table today, and I just want to go on record my congratulations to all those individuals, Chair. We have a heck of a journey ahead of us, so the congratulations is timely, but we have a journey on our hands. But I think it's really important that we now have a team, and we're now about building the team and how do we strengthen that team and really deliver to the agenda that we have moving forward. You will see, unfortunately, we were not successful in appointing a chief people officer. That chief people officer is really important both to the ICB but to the system, and we will be going back out again to try and because it is a proposal that I do in the board we can be faithful, and it's so fundamentally important to our system. That's the first element, Chair, that's important to update the board. The second area then, Chair, is winter planning, and you will see that we as an ICB are charged with developing the winter plan for our population. You will see on page 31 the areas that we are charged with delivering in line with NHS and what they've asked us to do. So you can see from that page it's about increasing capacity outside of the queue. You can see it's very clearly about how do we ensure timely discharge, and also then how do we deal and how we prepare for COVID-19 and other respiratory conditions, particularly flu as well. So you can see what the planning ask is. You are very well aware, Chair, that we're working on this at the moment, and that we would bring a full proposal back to the board in October for approval by the ICB in terms of what the will look like and the actions that we need to take. I think it's fair to reflect that this is no small ask. We're asking that the system works in partnership to deliver what will be a remarkably difficult winter. We know over and above the health needs and the social care needs, we have the issue of coming out of the pandemic, with the issue of undoubtedly in terms of fuel poverty, food poverty, cost of living. We know all of these have a huge impact on our population, and therefore we're challenged to produce a plan for our population to meet all of those requirements. And that's the job of the board, that's the job of the ICB, and we'll be bringing that back in October. And then the final thing, just to reference, Chair, is the public engagement process that is ongoing at the moment. So as you know, we are building via the Care Partnership, so through the partnership approach, building an overarching strategy for our population for the next 5 years. We're in the process of hearing the voices of our population, our partners, etc. And so and also through surveys. I've included the link in the paper for anyone who's a resident of our area, whether that's any member of the public and also anyone around the table, because we want to hear the views of all of our population. So far we've got 1,600 responses. We've also had on top of that a large number of community groups as well, and we really would ask that people could participate. If you've not done the survey, or if you've not handed that survey to your networks, please do so we can get the biggest understanding of what it is we need to do for our population. So Chair, I'm happy to take any thoughts, comments or questions on the matter.
Okay, thanks, Shane. So it's the three substantive items there: recruitment to the exec positions on the ICB, the planning challenges in the letter from the NHS nationally, and the public engagement work that's been ongoing. And I would join Shane in congratulating those who've been appointed to the director roles. Also, a big thank you to everyone around the table who's part of the stakeholder sessions, because that was incredibly, and sat on the interview panels. That was incredibly valuable to get that insight to what people thought of the candidates that presented themselves. So yeah, big thank you. Some questions, Helen.
Thanks, Shane, for that update. And congratulations for exactly the place and the sort of work that you've put into to fill those vacancies. My question on people officer. Probably a thing that comes through a lot of my commentary today would be on workforce. Given the scale of the workforce issues, what arrangements are in place in the interim, in the absence of that, and particularly at the senior level?
So you'll be aware that we have an interim chief people officer, Julie, and Julie has agreed to stay on until we're able to fill the permanent post. So initially she'll be staying on until the end of December. We'll review that obviously depending on the outcome of the process. We also have a very strong workforce group, which includes most of the senior people from the people world across our partners. So we have a lot going on. I just feel that we really want to fill that post and try and move it on even further. But we have safety and security really staying with us until we fill that post.
Other questions for Shane? Steve?
It's a big question, Chair. I guess we know that we are going to be under a difficult set of circumstances for the next few months, and I'm interested in ensuring that we have a good communication, good comm strategy to ensure that we can reach the public, we can engage with the public in a realistic way, as well as our workforce, delivery workforce, which is clearly going to be under some pressure, and working very productively with the press, because some of these messages and some of the issues we'll be facing together, not just particular to health and care needs, but generally around the cost of living and other aspects, will impact, and we have to work together to take people safely on that journey, as safely as we can. So comms is going to be critical, recognising the multiple approaches that we're going to need to reach communities that perhaps are disadvantaged, perhaps where there are engagement issues anyway. So I think we need a strategy to be able to do that effectively.
If I could just two things. First of all, the big conversation that's going on at the moment has been our opportunity to work through our networks to really understand what keep people healthy and also share information. But you are correct, a good conversation around with Turkish Parliament and we're working together on that. So anyone come in there on that?
Just one of the additional things is part of the that overarching programming work. We continue some insights with public, carers, families, frontline staff. So that's just starting to complete, and that will help us really understand some of those messages because it's one of those experiences.
Okay. Alison and Jane.
Congratulations to the next team, brilliant news for us. Wish you well and supporting your role. My question following on from Steve's about the engagement journey and strategies. It's great, and I love it in the report, I love it, so thank you. Is there anything from the people you have engaged which is showing you there are gaps in areas in our patch where the engagement could be improved? Because it sort of goes back to Steve's question a little bit, but what's that telling us? And where should we be targeting?
start bringing all that thinking together. So at that point it becomes visible. At the moment, we're just still in listening on it.
I guess my question is, are there areas of population which we're not currently listening to of these engagements? I think one of the things that we've had in terms of the responses to the conversation is there are certain groups that are not getting as many responses to. So those are men to gender from 25 to 35, particularly in that area. So we're looking then to try and make sure that we're targeting some of that. And then young people from black and minority groups that we're again doing this target. And linking in shades of area, making sure that our community and our voluntary sector and organisations and linking in the local authority to make sure that we reach those gaps. The whole idea is not to have a conversation 5 times, but to make sure that we're actually engaging and utilising all that to bring it back.
I think I've already covered this in my, it was just to say that because of kind of some of those efforts we resist, we're going to use communication channels. You don't need to start from scratch. This is inevitable already there. There's talk already of communicating using local aid groups, and I'm sure most of this is doing one or other in those days. We don't want to start from scratch. There's a lot of
One thing we have a big program of engagement with regards to groups. If you should share, it would be good to share that with all the board members. And if you're able to attend some of them, then we can start to get a real feeling of what our community is, not just us bringing it together. There's a whole program of engagement. And through your chair, if possible, then members could go along with the other groups.
Good evolution. And it was pointing at local authority colleagues at the last meeting, which you picked up there to make sure that we're using all the data that they've got available, and voluntary sector, which I know Sean is on to, so you get a full picture on there. That's really good. Any other questions to Shane on his input? Okay, then I'll move on to the care traffic control item. Jeff's going to do a presentation. Everybody sat this side of the table. I think we're going to need to turn around because we need to see the screen. So,
I think John and I will keep sets up, and we're doing a live clickable demonstration, relying on the website to respond. So I'll let Keith do that, and then I think John and I will do the introduction. Because where this started was some of the conversations that we had across the system about what would help people make better decisions. So that was the point at which we started, and people, the first point, the first comment that people made was, if I understood more of what was going on in parts of the system that I'm connected to, that I'm reliant upon, that would help me make better decisions. So that's a very simple question, is where we started in terms of capturing some of the information. So John, running as assistant in Who, I think from your perspective, we can do a double out of the things.
Yeah, so what Keith's going to show you is a dashboard, and we all use dashboards in all our organisations. The idea here is that we bring everything together in the system as well. It's definitely true what Total said around if you can't see what other organisations are doing, myths build up around what they are actually doing, and the ability of me and one organisation to do something maybe hampered by this myth being built up. So sharing information allows people to see what is happening across the whole system, see how everybody's working together, and then you can respond to that as an individual organisation. On top of that, there is the ability to then share ideas of how other people can help what is happening in your organisation. So as one organisation is dealing with its own demand, once it's dealt with that, the demand doesn't go away, it just moves this demand to somebody else. So we can start working together on these sort of things. And from an operational day-to-day point, that will be powerful in being able to make sensible decisions right now about what we're going to do to deal with the problem. But it also gives us the opportunity to see what is coming down the pipe and respond before it becomes a problem. And you can do that in an organisation, you can do it much better.
on the system. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions, but
Yeah, just the other thing to add is why is this different from the dashboards that we've seen throughout the years? The piece that's really important is very often our dashboards are about what is happening within the organisation, what is happening for that organisation. When we actually looked at what people needed, what information they have to share and what information they need, it really started to shine a torch on the fact that it's not always just about what's happening inside the organisation, it's the flow and connection between. And as John said, it changes, it flows between. So every piece of activity that's undertaken in one part of the system, for example, family care, has a knock-on effect with a time delay potential into another part of the system. So as we start to be able to get into a position where we're not just looking retrospectively in the mirror about what's happened to try and make decisions, we can start to step ourselves into that predictive space, which the ambulance service have for many years done a lot more, but actually as an entire system starting to think through now. So the prototype, and it is a prototype, so the data that sits behind this at the moment is data from a particular point in time, but it is a prototype to try and understand how the functionality can be. And the ask of the board today is really to have a discussion about how can we do more to get something that would be useful. And Shane's point about strategic, operational and tactical, it's really important to think that there will be different uses and different users of this kind of information. So as Keith talked you through, I just want to bear in mind this is trying to create that applicable demonstration that helps us start to think about. We went through all the process to actually get the local authority data, and I do want to say North Somerset have been amazing in terms of sharing some of their data, so that we can understand what operational data is collected, so that we can start to get that full system vision, so that we can start to see make better decisions and understand what's happening. Keith, over to you.
Thank you, John. So, Keith Robinson, Performance Manager in Urgent Care at the NICB. I'm going to walk through the dashboard today, and there's 4 sections we'll walk you through. The top section here, you can see the lozenges and the full adjustments in the areas of the national care system. So we scroll down, there'll be it's a tube map or a flow connected system. So I'll take us through how those tubes connect. There's a stack view, which is a view of parts. So there's going to be 4 views at the moment, which is what our partners have told us they would like, and it's obviously helpful. So starting at the top, we've never really had the full list of data, which we're helping us warehouse and the data system environment. So if you like partners to input and then we'll do some of this course about how that works. And we can see that we've got, this is just a mock-up again, but that drop down there would be last day, last hour, but also a particular feature. So when we come into some of the work that modern analytics we've done across university and across the modern team in ICB to say what's the next hour and also what's the next week or what's the next scenario to research and potentially add to us to understand scenario modeling and also project and transformation issues. We've got so the top part there is the expansion plans coming in. I think it expanded into what's in just to say actually what's our capacity, so you can see in all of our setups of our and social care system what capacity there is to see that. Scrolling down, which really know that it goes when we back up. We then come into the part which John Debs mentioned about how our activities are connected with the cascade of system effects. So picking up one of our views, you can see now that there's some right ratings behind there about how much capacity it has to deal with, and looking at that system council or the second service or the we can see in that example all the green orange there, that's the system house, but system house is actually black. All of those right ratings have their own definitions now, defined previously with these open sources. This is basically a more live snapshot about how that logic works. We're going to come on that view there, which imagine that these views are also come across emergency databases. So this is the factory effect that emergency care development. We've got then a bit of a snap view, and this is again the points that people wanted to ask.
do some of that to look at patterns in the background, which you can't see in the process. But that work has been happening in the background. And of course, what's important then is that you can eliminate all this. But this is an iterative process. It's the beginning of what we think to do. We know one of the areas that we've already engaged with the workforce work stream is that workforce is critical. So it's a complicated piece of data to be able to get very different in local authorities to into our peaks and to one-on-one. But actually, when people are committed to workforce data also goes, so we can start to see. We also know that for our care sector, that's really complicated. We have the care capacity tracker, but some data in that space is not deemed to be up to date. But what this starts to do is it helps us to understand that it is worth doing a piece of engagement to improve the data quality because it's being used for something that's actually beneficial to the system. So what this is doing is also targeting those areas that we need to do more work around the data, do more work around data quality and data capture to be able to then use it into something that people are going to use rather than previously we always worked around the data and then find that we actually use it and advance that. Steve's point from earlier is this has to be something that enables people to take action, otherwise it's not going to be. And that's why the piece about integrating, if you have this, what do you do with it, helps us to really understand, and so prototype is such an important process as part of this, because it gives people that ability to start to see and think how it reduces things. So there's still a lot more work to do to engage with people to start.
Can we take some back from you from the top there?
Just want colleagues to get a second back here, just around the time as we presented this to Amanda Pritchard, and a couple of questions that came up from Amanda and her team. One was, when are you going to factor everything in? So thinking about how that connects in, and also then in terms of timelines. So we're at the moment with beta development, which is a piece of work that UHBW are helping us with, is during September, with a view to going out to procurement for a partner to give us a dashboard and that capability.
Thanks, Dave. Questions? So I've got Maria, Will, and Steve, and then Julie.
2 points at a time, but one was about the interdependencies and how we feel this is that this brings the other point, so David, there's I think the fact that we won't have it for next year, is there something that we can do in the meantime to be doing this data? There is a lot of data, you mentioned about people using it. Is there an expectation that who is using it? Because we could spend all day everywhere just looking at data, and then one of our organisations having fun looking at data. Who takes accountability? How do we prioritise? If something flashes red, but three things are flashing red, what's the prioritisation process? Who needs to come together? So data's one thing, but what we're going to do with it, expected actions, that will turn this into being something different, because there's a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort.
In terms of the beta capability, we'll be touching on the data. So that's something that will be available in September. Large scale piece will be management. So the whole idea of having these is that we do get something that we can use and learn from. I think the prioritisation process, as we think about how we approach winter and our plan for that coordination function, it feels like that could be something that could dovetail into this, so that we've got that with an EPRR perspective. This really starts to drive some of that EPRR work, and also puts it into the hands of people who need to make those decisions. So the integrated care bureaus, discharge teams, etc. Making sure that we've got some of that factored in as well.
Yeah, thanks. If we go back to the concept of strategic, tactical, and operational, you could envisage at a tactical level having this control function, coordinating function, which is a system coordinator. That's the tool for the system coordinator. I think you're right. If we just say to all the 45,000 people working on our system, have a play, that's all it'll be. So actually what we've got to do is put that systems coordinator, strategic, tactical, operational, to me, this is both operational, but you know your own internal operations of the organisation. This is much more tactical operations. It's about the system a number of times a day coming together and saying, so what's happening in the system today? Not what's happening in the organisation, what's happening in the system today. And I would envisage it being that way around.
Okay. Quite a few people can in, so I've got Will, Steve, Julie, Joe and the chair.
Thank you, Chair. So from an ambulance perspective, probably our greatest concern and therefore arguably our greatest risk is the undifferentiated patient in the community. Is that captured in what we've described there, and is it easy to identify?
I don't know. I think it's an important point, so I think we need to come in and have a deeper conversation.
I can see where it is.
So what we've got available in that data is the quote on full stack.
Yeah,
So that is visible,
yeah.
and also where it is. So we've got the flow through from the full stack into this.
Yes.
So we can see it. What we haven't yet got is actually so how we then support you managing that full stack, which I think is the next way through.
But I do think it's important to come and do a bit more work with your teams
Yeah.
to say what would actually be useful for you here, because so that you can see that demand earlier in the pipeline and you can sorry, that's what I thought you meant by undifferentiated.
Well, it's the patients in the community that we know are waiting for us and we haven't got eyes on them because we can't get to them, whereas the patients outside the hospitals, dreadful though that is, they've got eyes on them. It's that.
Steve?
No, I think it's covered by Maria, and just following on from Will, it's how does this help us identify the highest risks? That's really where it will help us. If it doesn't, then we need to try and get it to help us.
And I think that's the work that the IT is going to do, which is really trying to understand the patterns, so that we can look at historically what's happening in downstairs to try and get to where the we can predict future. And of course it has to be around those things happening there. So this becomes more valuable.
So that last point, if we get really sophisticated, we can start to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us do some of this. Because what worry is, if you've got lots of eyes just looking at it, they won't be able to really benefit. They'll just glaze over.
Yes. Once, my caveat is that it's not still effective. Once we know the outcomes and we know the patterns are viable, then yes, absolutely. That cognitive loading emphasis is really important. It gives us that step into predictive AI machine learning.
Next step. Julie?
Thanks. It sort of naturally follows on as a part of the cover, but it is that so what? And I just wonder whether, if you looked at it now, whether it's hypothetical data or September, is there somebody who sits there and writes a report that says, this is now what that's telling us today? And can we have a look at that? Because I think the danger is, and we see it in lots of the meetings we go to and we set up our coordination centre, we just report and then we all go back. And if we're going to look at it strategically, actually today, what did those hypothetical figures say about our system?
Yeah.
And then what would we do about it?
And I think that's the function that Shane's talking about is essentially right. That needs to be the intelligence. It's not just about presenting a dashboard to the system. It's actually the intelligence that comes out of it as well. And that may be in a slightly different format to this, but that's organisation development.
I think a good point, everyone's touched on it, Shane, you talk about, where does this sit, strategic, tactical, operational, what incentivises you to use it? That's always the challenge, isn't it? Because, Maria's probably put a huge amount of effort into it, and everyone goes, well, someone else is looking at that. We don't make decisions for it.
The reason we've gone through and started from what's the problem we're trying to solve for the frontline, tactical and strategic program, that's where this has come from. So this hasn't been sitting in an ivory tower drawing this. It's actually been driven by what people have told us they need to make a difference. And that's why it's a bit slower when you do proper UX, user experience that drives your design. So that's the process.
Next step. Sure.
When I pick up on Maria's point, when I saw the presentation, I said to her, what's the escalation and governance around this? Because we know from home, don't we, when you've got a high pressure system, the Liberty base, starting with those platform, and actually the medical directors, the chief nurses and the chief executives need an escalation route to say, this person
we are genuine about supporting our practitioners as a senior leadership group, but it's got to have clinical representation. I think the medical director, chief medical officer, the person representing the CMO needs to come together, probably the HCPE, and I think it will, and then have to have a conversation with the chief executive group about ratifying that decision. So that's just how I was seeing this flowing. It's not agreed yet, but there was another conversation about the escalation, because otherwise it only get used for things that are sort of business as usual. This needs to be used in crisis, but that does need an escalation. I think that's very much
That's the point to be made all day about making sure we've got clinical engagement. Otherwise, it's not relevant. Lisa, you're going to come on that point.
I just wanted to build into this because I think there's something about how we use this to create sort of our proactive view of flow. So if I think about the number of people who self-present in terms of social care from door that we don't currently see, we know those people who then hit primary care within a couple of days, but who then hit ED. So there's something about actually how we then respond as a system to then tailor our resources as opposed to saying, oh, we know it's coming, but we don't then respond. And actually using this as a tool to allow us to then proactively think, history tells us 2 days later this will be this impact, therefore we need to, even if it's alerting primary care, how do we structurally alert us the same way on a book day appointment. It's that sort of thing that I think we need to use in terms of building this, and then building it into part of our coordination programme, and therefore the escalation process. And it allows us to then respond in that way, and I think that's the bit that this gives us in terms of by connecting the data from all partners in a way that's visible to all partners, allows us to start thinking about it. It's a bit like a freeze of the day when we know we have high levels of emergency admissions. We know they're going to hit our complex discharges. But we don't plan and adjust our resources that way. I think it will allow us to help kind of
Lisa, clear?
Just loving the direction it's going in, it's very exciting. It does make me wonder whether or not we have highlighted that workforce is one of those complex data sets that you're going to have to pull in. But I'm also interested in workforce health because if we've not got enough people, it would be really nice to know what's happening with, for example, the exit interview data and how that influences our quality of management and how we improve the experience for our workforce. Also wondering whether or not at board level, at ICB, CSI, we're already talking about some reporting structures. And I didn't know how much of that was being informed by what we're discussing your national, because we're already saying these are the metrics we're going to be using. Is it all connected? Do we have a data strategy that covers all of that, or is that a work in progress?
So I think picking up on the extending scale, these are really exciting conversations, and because once people see things, that's when you get those ideas and you get that. So I think some of that starts to shape a data strategy. I don't think it's fair to say we've got a fully fledged data strategy at the moment, but what this is doing is flagging up those connection points and picking up when people started to do pieces of work and we can start to connect again. So a really massive piece about connecting into how we can partner across the system. So that was one of the conversations that Rosie had. Now we've just got it locked up here, about how we make that something meaningful. I think it's a really strong piece of principle from this board. So it gives us those opportunities, not there yet, but they're really important.
Thanks, Dave. I think it would be really interesting to bring this back to the board to talk about how you're testing it, trialling it, utilisation, proof of concept. It was back where we started this morning about this all having a shared understanding of demand. And I think for you, Shane, making sure that it's utilised in the right places. It'd be interesting to hear that coming back. Just a question, this item was for information, but is there anything, and discussion, is there anything that you wanted from the board today that we haven't given you, other than an area of conversation?
I think it's important, it's important for chief execs and the board to understand that this is something we're doing, to be able to make sure that it gets focus in the organisation. People are leaning into it. We've got a really good cohort of people. The clinical engagement is absolutely critical. But also people starting to think about how does this help us solve the problems. This is what earlier really important. How does it help us solve the problem in the front door to social care? Because that's the challenge too. So it is about people leaning in and being part of it at this stage.
So you're going to do the job?
Yeah, I think the other thing is there's an absolute commitment from board members for information. That if we're going to try and manage this single view of truth, then all partners need to be able to provide that information, and if they can't, then we need to work with them to help them. And I think what you made, from a Somerset perspective, I know you've really open the books to Joe and said, listen, let's look at what we can do here. I think we need to reflect on all of us as partners. Are we getting everything that we need, and probably working through to make sure that we get that flow of information. Because if we're going to try and manage a single view of the tree, we've got to make sure it is the single view of the tree.
So the difficult question, I guess, there, Deb, is there any blockages at the moment? Is there anyone sat on the table who won't share data, hasn't shared data, hasn't engaged in the process?
No, everyone is engaging. Keith, John, that whether there's points that you've got around areas that you think would be helpful to oil the wheels with them.
No, I think the data colleagues are on board. I think our next challenge is to set the operational so what with it. So we've got operational leads and we've got that journey now to make sure that what we presented will be on something that we feel is out with what colleagues are on. So we've got no pushback at the moment, and we're working with Surrey and the local authority colleagues now to get regulation lists and to get those that sub-layer ready for the next week.
Some testing on that is really helpful. I know in UHBW, when I was given a clinical lead, he brought stuff to life where he tested it in an operational setting, and then we worked out where that data was best used. So, but it created an energy behind it, which was not management. Just creating a system that is relevant to day-to-day work in our hospitals and in healthcare and social care.
Human planning has been really helpful. She's kind of thrown a few challenges in there about what we can influence the actual management. But it's kind of cool, as you say, it's like efficient for therapists and others having to change.
So it might just be worth for the board to know that this started with the clinicians, and it's only just now getting into the operational staff. So we did deliberately start in BI clinicians first. Joe?
Just 2 points really. It's great that we've been working with the data. I guess I just want to emphasise the point that before we can still have some of that piece around keeping information some of our markets, which is really important when we look at systematic around discharge success. I guess for me it's always known duplications and the interfaces seem to work really well. And so I think that's really important. The other point I was going to make was it's difficult to see all the buttons as it were. And I suppose historically as a system, we focused a lot on the last discharge assessment from the older age groups, and for me it's really important that this data set shows us and explores all age groups and focuses as much on children and young people, those people that are on leave, etc., as much as older age cohorts who result in so much pressure across the system in terms of discharge success. So likely it will be around all age group system approach.
And that means the Rosie point this morning about young people. That is the start of the system. Is that an issue there? It's not.
So children's data is more complex to get hold of. It doesn't stop us doing the design piece. It's not in there yet. Explicitly, that's what these conversations are so rich. So what we need to do is have a further analysis of the other things that are actually going to be useful to help us run the system. The CMD is one of the really important component.
Well, that does show us full pathway, doesn't it?
I think that's the key for me, and all pathways really important and again, like the stage approach, recognising it's complex, but it shouldn't cause that because of our aspiration vision for all we do.
So can I just check how board members can get, we can bring this back to another board meeting, but in the meantime, how developments getting reported across the system so that we get buy-in from everyone?
So we've been doing open show and tells. So those are open show and tells, what we'll make sure is that all members actually get access to those. If they do, we'll check them on. The whole idea is that it's what we've got to do this month, so we're collecting that information and using it as we go. I think yes, definitely coming back because there will be a kind of decision point about the money to investment over and above where we are now. So I think it's the yes and in terms of those actually works. We'll make sure that that there's enough briefing that goes out to people because they can't get to the show as well. So it's a way of connecting this because it does feel like with your views a really important time on the team.
Thanks, Dave. Shane, anything else you want to add?
No, just it's fundamental to our coordinating approach. And it's a really great start. Just got to be so careful with scope creep. I'd rather get it done, what we've got, and then move rather
and stepping away from them, we're going to write lots and lots of papers to, we're going to do this and we're going to make results. So it's been
Thanks, Dan. And passing that thanks from the board, I think would be really helpful. So, Maria.
Just wondering, because I think sitting alongside this, we really have to have that conversation about what are the extra actions we can do to take this information that we know we're going to take from. So what will it open up for us? Where will those decisions get taken? What commissions, what extra things do we need to enable this to work to best effect?
Yeah. I think some of the things we don't know when we're missing stuff now, because we monitor things on a linear basis and flow them on linear. So, that queuing theory concept, we don't really have any of that in our system. So some of that, there is a view that there's a lot of capacity in waste because of time and need and when the single referral format miss each other. So it's about picking up some of that and also, like you say, really understanding there are actions that we take that have no effect, let's stop doing those, and there are actions that we take that have effect, and let's make sure we're measuring those.
I think it's a good challenge, Maria, which is there's no value why we do it.
Yeah.
And then people will buy into it. So, yeah, Deb, you've got it, I know, but that's a constant, that question has to be asked all the way through, isn't it?
And if we get to a point where we say this isn't having value, we stop and do something else. That's the other thing with building prototypes, is effectively they are disposable, iterative ways of getting to what we know what we do want and what we use.
Okay, Deb, thank you. Thank you, Evan, for the presentation. Some really good stuff, and I know it's early days on some of it, but some real good progress. Can I move us on to the next item then, which is the lessons learned from mass vaccination programme. I think Dave, you up there. I can't see you two. Oh, there you are. So I think you two are both going to do the input to us on the...
Well, it's certainly my name, Vincent Paper, but I certainly wouldn't take any paper on the work I've watched and, an incredibly successful mass vaccination campaign locally. This has been the SRO locally, driven by Anne and Claire, who are about to introduce themselves. And first, the presentation paper which we've all read is really to share some of the learning from our local campaign and some emerging thoughts about where that learning can be spread across our system and to improve further improve projects in the system. So,
is it going up on the screen or you No, you don't need to. I mean, just what suits you. Is that doable? No.
I'm not sure.
Just put it in. It's going to take us a while. I suggest we just talk to it.
this exciting thing. I'm going to focus largely on
a lot of learning in terms of our approach, our culture, and how we really went about running the programme that could be captured and could be used in the future. I want to share some things. So there is actually a full evaluation of the vaccination programme. There's also a couple of other evaluations going on, one of the grants, which is the volunteer programme, and also of our reducing inequalities grants as well. So we can, there's much more learning that we can share if people are interested. But if you look at the principles of working with flower, that's what I'm really going to run through. And in the very centre of that, you've got doing the right thing. COVID vaccination was new to absolutely everybody. It was very, very difficult to start. Lots of things were changing, and everything that people were doing was new. And sometimes we would get instructions from the national or regional team, and we would always assess those instructions to see whether that was the right thing to do for our local population. So at the heart of everything that we did as a programme, doing the right thing was absolutely fundamental. We set up a clinical reference group, we were clinically led, and if we had any doubts about anything, we would go to that clinical reference group and get their clinical opinion on something, and that's what we would adopt as the programme. If we didn't agree with something, if we didn't think it was the right thing for the population, we would push back on that, and that was really important to us. And then at the very top there, the single goal. We were very fortunate again in that we knew exactly what we had to do, which was to get jabs in arms as fast as possible without leaving anybody behind. And everybody working on the programme had that as their mission. There was no much about, that was what we were there to do, and everything we did was focused on that single goal. And if you do read the full evaluation, that comes through very, very strongly as one of the key things that made it success. The regular assembly of multidisciplinary and multi-organisation. This is our clinical delivery group. It met at 9 o'clock every day, Monday to Friday, sometimes on weekends. And that was made up of clinical and operational reps from across the health system and from local authorities as well. That daily meeting drove the programme, and still does. We still meet 3 times a week. And what it meant is that we could have very real-time decision-making, real-time improvement. If you had an issue, you knew you could get into that clinical delivery group. It had a very flat structure. Everyone had access to it. If there was any issues at all, you could get an answer to your question, usually the same day, sometimes the next day, very, very quickly. And we never left anybody without an answer to their problem. Even if it was an interim solution, we always made sure that people were confident in what they were doing when they were in vaccination clinics. All views were respected in that clinical delivery group as well, so it was very flat, very clear. But sometimes it was a really difficult conversation. You were bringing together primary care, community care, hospitals, local authorities. People had different opinions and different views. But once we made a decision, that decision stuck. Everybody bought into it, and we made a decision. That was what we were going to do, and we stuck to it. We liked project management. We didn't do anything that didn't add any value. We focused very much on managing our issues, managing our risks. We did a highlight report once a week that went to the mass vaccination cell. But if we didn't have value, we didn't do it. We were too busy, and that really, I think, helped everybody focus on what we were there to do. Data insight driven. We relied a lot on information and data, and we reviewed it sometimes 3 times a week, sometimes daily, to understand areas where maybe uptake wasn't as good as it would be, to understand if people were taking the vaccine second dose, which is their first dose. But everything we did, we looked at data and we looked at insights and feedback as well, so getting feedback from our population about their thoughts on vaccination and using that to drive initiatives and maybe put our different ways of doing the vaccination programme where we can see that maybe uptake is lower. Community-led and operational flexibility. We adjusted our programme to meet local needs, and that was really important for us because Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire have different communities and they have different populations and they have different needs. So it's very important to us that if we're going out to do a vaccination clinic, that it's appropriate for that community. And that leads on to addressing health inequalities. I think
real need to build trust with our local communities. And the way that we start to build that trust is to work with community organisations and community leaders themselves, because they are the messengers, they are the people that are trusted by those local communities. By working in genuine partnership with those groups and with those leaders, we can start to have a really ongoing dialogue with those communities, understand what's important to them. And quite often, when people are faced with lots of different social problems, lots of different health problems, vaccine and being vaccinated is not quite at the top. So going into a community to talk about vaccination on its own wasn't enough. We had to go to communities, talk to community organisations, understand what's really important to people, and then deliver clinics and information in a way that was relevant to that community as well. So the very first outreach clinic we did was in Southmead Moss. We spoke to Moss leaders and they basically said to us, you come up, you have up, you vaccinate, leave everything else to us, leave the booking system to us, leave the communication to us, leave the messaging to us. And that was really scary because our natural way of working is just to kind of do everything. But we were like, okay, that's fine. Within 24 hours, they had booked 400 people into a vaccination clinic in school and they had a waiting list. And what it also meant was actually if people couldn't make that clinic, it would be the DNA, but they didn't DNA because they ran the Mossy Moscow and they said, well, I can't make it, and they went to the waiting list. So it had absolutely no DNAs. And that learning about handing control, handing power over to a community really drove our whole approach. And we did look back, and that was really how we tried to work with all our communities. We do the vaccinations, we do what we're really good at and help, and we leave what communities are good at to communities. I think values and attributes that matter to people. So I mentioned, in lots of communities, vaccination, particularly at the moment, is not top of the list. So really important that we wrap vaccination up with other services as well and things that do matter to people, and that we really genuinely listen and understand what people are facing in their lives, so that we can really support that and put vaccination in that context rather than just on its own. And then building on existing community engagement and infrastructure. So I think just to recognise that there is an awful lot out there. So local authorities have amazing infrastructure in their local communities. There are so many community voluntary groups that work with communities, that understand communities. So really important that any work that's done, any work that we do, builds on that rather than replicating that. So those are our principles of our learning. Just a little bit more on the cycling and I'll hand it to Anne. So we worked this through with stakeholder groups, with our business working group, and we said if we're going to look at projects that we could use our learning to do to kind of deliver health improvement projects, what kind of projects would they be? And they said, well, you could do like a single issue thing, you could do single disease, smoking, diabetes. You could look at things more holistically, so you could do a wider health and equality piece in particular areas. So, for example, Park Hill down there where we're doing some project work down at the moment. Or you could do multifactorial health issues, so for example, improving heart health. And then they also came up with, if we're going to look at a project where we could use these principles, what would be the criteria for choosing that project? And Anne was on through these as well, but it's things like the health impact, the number of people affected, the improvements in health literacy, transferability, social impact, things like that. And then just finally at the bottom, and I'll hand it to Anne, this is the concept of the iceberg, which is an awful lot of, there's some communities where there's a lot of stuff that we actually don't know. So some communities, we know what's going on, we know what the health issues are, but in other communities, a lot of these issues are hidden. And getting
passionately about this, and I think we've learned from the programme that actually going into about vaccinations with group of people who cannot feed their children, who are very likely to in their homes, who cannot get from the top floor or a multi-storey flat because the lift's broken. You know, we can talk about vaccination all we like, but actually it does not meet their needs as person. So what we need to do is to track things around, which is why I think we've taken this approach. So these are not our ideas, these are community ideas. So this is what communities have come up with. So we're representing Rambry here today. And we don't want this to be lost. I think the evaluation, we've also got a paper, we're in the process of using another. We've been shortlisted with patient safety rules for the HSJ. And there's a lot of ways of getting information out there, and this is just another way of doing it. I think it's really good. So don't think that it's their analogies. It absolutely isn't. This is about communities and what they need. So I love the title of this, Healthy Vessels. This is about improving heart health in our communities. So we all know about vascular disease and the impact it has on vascular health, issues to dementia, heart problems, stroke, hypertension, diabetes. And we also know that some of the general risk factors for this are around smoking, obesity, and living a sedentary lifestyle. So going in and talking to those communities about one element of this will be on. So we have recently focused on Critical Somali women who wanted to learn how to cook healthily. So they came to us and said, you know, in one of the community clinics, we want to learn about how to cook, about how to cook healthily. And so we put in touch with local authorities, and so they're now able to support them in cooking healthily with their families, which will have an impact on obesity, heart disease. And if we do these things and get it up, in the future we will find that health for our population will improve. And again, it's multi-generational. Children with obesity is high on the agenda. And we would want to ensure that we were taking a multi-generational approach. We've done that with the Royal Vaccination Programme. We've also done quite a lot of hyperlocal work. We know that one size doesn't fit all. What might work for City Bristol does not necessarily work in South Gloucestershire, as in South Gloucestershire, whereas it makes sense there. We've got pockets of deprivation across our system, but actually those needs are different and we have to meet those needs in a different way. So a hyperlocal approach is something quite important. And covering those social community factors. We have done some insight work with local populations, and what I found as a nurse quite disturbing, part of the insight work we do with young people is their lack of trust in the health service. They do not trust the GP. They do not trust the nurses. They trust the community volunteers, but actually, we think we feel against healthcare providers that actually this has to be secret. Well, we don't. And that came across really strongly. I think it's really shocking. So having these, taking the social community factors into account is really important. The other area to focus on is health literacy. People, particularly in the first period, do not understand how to access healthcare. And having a leaflet isn't going to resolve that for them. We know that we've got the vaccination programme around encouraging these to be They have a very different view of healthcare. They fly home over just the healthcare officer. They don't actually always access healthcare here. And when they do, quite often, it's the emergency room, it's through the emergency department, we don't necessarily access healthcare. And we need to focus on health literacy, so that will help to reduce the inequalities. And so healthy vessels isn't just about improving health, The other issue around this, particularly through the COVID pandemic, is improved mental health and wellbeing. We know we've seen quite a significant rise in people really experiencing mental illness and struggling with the impact that COVID actually had and the lockdown. And it's been exacerbated, so people may have already had mental health issues, and this has been exacerbated by some of the issues around lockdown. If you've got a mental health issue, access to help will also be difficult for you. Health literacy is really important for these people, it's supporting them. And we know that there's a high mortality rate from cancer and heart disease in people with depression and other mental health issues. So you'll see throughout this that there's common threads here. It's not just separate projects, there's lots of common threads here. And again, one of the most successful things we did in the programme was do a family clinic where an 98-year-old grandmother could come and we vaccinated the whole family. We didn't expect them to go to lots of different clinics. We provided support for them in their communities. Again, we've done backpack vaccinations in Leeds to Bristol, so we took a high-fidelity approach. We went into our shops, we went into supermarkets, and we encouraged people to have vaccination. And actually, this was there on their doorstep, and there with a backpack, they came forward. Again, it's helping to reduce that inequality. We saw this one as well. Again, this one comes up, I think it's what it's really the ease of delivery. That's around coordination of services. There's a lot of complexity in our health system, but we know we can roll this out as long as we don't stumble at the first version. There's lots of hurdles around this, and there are lots of hurdles of vaccination, and we move forward. We're lucky in many ways because we have the mandate to do that, but I do think that the communities need us to take some of these challenges or impacts in.
And I've got some time. I know the board members going to have some questions for you, so rather than cut the questions short, I don't know whether we can go to the room and ask them stuff now, because, the board only has so long, but it's been a great insight that we've really covered it well. So are you happy to open up to questions?
I think the other slides, the common threads are there. You can see them in all the slides in the pack, so you'll be able to see those complements. So yeah, that's right.
So hang on there, and I'll go to the room for questions. So John.
It's not a question, just to say absolutely brilliant. Yeah, really well done. I don't think it just seems like an example of you were clearly interested in, you certainly appropriate skills and appropriate things in the parish. So just brilliant to see that how people force and so consistent with everything.
Johnson, Stephen, Sarah, and the chair.
Two questions really. Brilliant, thank you. You've learnt a lot, and we know it works. So the question is, the areas you've identified that come in from the populations are clearly key issues for us across our communities. So what would stop you saying, right, we're just going to do this, get on with it? Great, that's what I'm saying. No, but excellent. That's because that's another bit of learning that came out of all of the work of the pandemic. Short decision making, get on and do it, and at relatively low cost, all of this. But the benefits are massive down the line. So this is about prevention, and that will save us huge amounts going forward. But more importantly, it brings communities together, and you work with the communities, and that again reduces, I think, cost, but it increases the impact because they own it and the trust. So I think this is just, you just push it, do it.
It is very difficult. We've had some very, very small rights that we've been into conversations. They have done a huge amount of this month. So it was the vaccination programme was great. This element is, we are one of the top systems for access to technology because we've let the communities lead this.
My question was about political resources for this, because I think one of the things you can one of the benefits of having a vaccination program is
questions. You've mentioned multi-generational, but there's been no specific mention of schools. Are we doing something on that? Are we connecting with them? And if so, how? I'm only saying because I'm co-chair of my Southwest School, and I don't have visibility on that. It'd be interesting to know how that's happening. And the other thing is that we've talked about providing funding, which is fabulous to community groups. One of the key challenges there is that there's lack of capacity and experience in filling out those forms and getting that to them. Is there support for those community groups?
So we've absolutely supported them with competing ways, and we try to make it as light touch as possible, including the evaluation elements of it. I think, you know, we get very good feedback from them, and we support them through that process. With regards to children, we're very fortunate in the essentially we've got the school immunisation service that we work very closely with. So the vaccination programme team have been in, supporting children in schools. We've run clinics now where we're giving MMR vaccinations also alongside COVID vaccinations and the other way around. So what we're trying to do is what the direction of the health said to me is we need to be closing the gap, and there are certain vaccinations that we know in our communities, not always the same in all of our areas, but you know, MMR is one with the smart flu, and we know that other vaccinations are good. They might be, we've got very good vaccination rate actually, but there are areas where we need to close the gap. So we're actually working with our school immunisation provider and the schools actually, schools with the prejudice, and the local authorities, yeah, absolutely. So we've run, so the schools immunisation services run as it always does, and we've also got extra clinics and school holidays and like what's my next door, I'm all the way through, very much gold actually. So in the vaccination centre, we've got some really good setup for the children, and some really different pulse study and vaccines. Our aim is to make it a positive experience.
Thanks, Anne. Devin and Arnold will sum up again.
Brilliant example of talking about it for years. Just on the health ones, obviously we've got an enhanced partnerships and increasing the health ones. There's a big Venn diagram for labour. Is that already connected in? Is that something we need to do?
These are just ideas. They're not projects. They are just thoughts of how our approach could be used. And I'm very glad there's already a load of work going on in mental health and some big projects as well. So I think this is more about the work use our approach to help move forward rather than replicating projects that are already on there.
And it's the same again now. It's probably useful to use go into some of the partnerships and have conversations with people who pick up that and
I think that we mentioned
Claire and Angela, you can see the passion that's come out from your presentation. So a big thank you for giving the time today and talk to us. And what's loudly come out from your presentation is around clarity of purpose and building trust. We just assume that sometimes, don't we? I suppose my final question on this, Shane, would be to you, is the so what. So we've heard about our approach and the success it's led to. I guess I don't know whether you want to just mop up with some of the so what on the approach.
I have met with Claire and Anna Peter, I suppose about 3 months ago, to say having come newly into the system, what BNSSG has done with vaccination is exemplary. I mean, it really is, it is not the norm. And I wanted to see how we could take learning from that, and therefore Claire, Anna and Peter have gone and taken this into a project environment. I would like us to turn some of this into absolute action as part of our strategy. For example, the Healthy Vectors Project. I'd like that to become real. I mean, so we're actually, so we're going to work and see how we can turn these into projects, because the approach described Flower, for example, as a generic approach is the right thing to do. The idea of the evidence-based, the idea of being live, project management life, etc. But we need to take a big thing, and I wonder whether the board, we might want to do this next meeting, the board would be the sponsor of one of these big projects. So instead of us just always talking about winter and where we are winter, we're talking about where we are with health investing. You know, it's a balance to the operational, and actually this is much more we want to try and get upstream. So we want to turn some of these to actual deliverables
was then will be accountable to the board on behalf of population.
So perhaps we can capture that as an action, Sarah, about how we're going to bring that back into the board to get updates on the approaches being taken. That'd be really valuable, Dave.
And fine, as a more granular action on that, I also was the co-SRO for the CDD board across the NSSG with Stu Walker as Director of DW. So let's get together with the CDD board to really think about how we can overlay the two programs and embed your work in that program. So let's build that into the next session.
Thanks, Dave. And thank you both for your time. Really appreciate it. We've now left the chair with a major challenge of how he's going to get through this agenda by the time, but we will. So, with that in mind, can I move us on to the performance rating and reporting? Can I start with perhaps Rosie and Lisa, and then Ellen just to mop her up at the end if you can.
I'll start, Chair. So I'm obviously quite conscious that we touched on this in various elements of the discussion so far. Clearly, as the publication of the resilience letter, the board has been asked to develop a board assurance framework which will come back to the board next month. That will encompass the NHS framework metrics as well that we talked about at the last board at the beginning of July. That intention is that will come back in October. And we'll also make sure that it includes children, because I think one of the key references throughout today is actually how to make school age as opposed to our normal approach around winter adults. Obviously, winter resilience has built in a different set of 6 metrics which we'll need to make sure are in place and trajectory is there. The report that is attached to the board packet, obviously our condensed performance report, which is very much focused on adults, our flow around urgent care, cancer and elective, as well as the core metrics around mental health. If I may, I just want to bring out 2 real highlights in terms of where we've been and the sort of actions that have been taken. So if I can just raise in terms of LBC and the work they've done in terms of ambulance delays, really pulling people through the hospital to reduce delays at the front door, making sure that ambulances being able to be turned around. That is starting to improve our category 2 performance in a way we haven't seen previously, and obviously that's actually, as we referred to earlier, really needs to those patients who we are hardly breaking diagnosis of. The second is the work AWP have done throughout July, which has been what they call a reset month, and that has made a real impact, particularly in terms of our outgoing replacements, which has reduced to below 2020 levels in terms of those arrangements. And it does show, just in terms of the fact that we can take those very specific actions that will actually impact on our performance. But very happy to take any questions.
I was just going to add about the MBT piece. I think the work we did and well after that around Steve achieving the use of balance risk framework has been really helpful. And I think we can use that model for other kind of risk assessment. So we can go end-to-end pathway, because that's the risk we take is just doing 50 pathway, but not doing whole pathway. And you can also start to see some really improvement in those capabilities as well in last 10 days, which is great to see. Again, through their minute practice programme. The bit that needs trying to do is look at more students framework and make sure we have a rounded view with the risk and quality issues and those performance metrics. So when we come back to board, in case we take a holistic view, don't work on a segregation of board metrics. That's all.
Shall I just combine all this with my conclusion?
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Okay. So basically, we've met twice with some previous and response quality. We decided to continue to move to progress membership, which we've made good progress on, and also to look at some performances. During July and August, we looked at cancer performance, ambulance handling delays, and discharge to assess. I think the needs are out, I would say, for the workforce, which I've mentioned a few times already in our conversation. My observation from coming in from probably a different lens is that it's a very challenged system. We've got areas that are underperforming. However, I'm really encouraged by some of the plans that are in place to move forward on resilience. Lisa mentioned something really important earlier on, in that if our plans are not working, we need to adjust and we need to amend, and I think it's really important that Shane made earlier on that we need to be in it together, and we need to have a command and control, critical incident approach to this. Again, I would just also like to echo what Lisa just said on AWP and MVP on improving performance there.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Share the others and you want to be around the further framework of the building. Are you all right?
No, I think this is part of the conversation I had today. There's the coordinating bit and making sure it connects, but actually also having a much wider view of performance, not just the next operation. And the conversation we just had there, that's as much about performance and getting on stream as it is about delivery performance. And really getting an assurance framework that just isn't tactical, but is much bigger than that. I think the board needs that. So I think the work that we are beginning to do is having a much wider view of performance, both operational, both quality, professional, but also strategically, how we're getting on stream. If we do all the great things in front of us, like I said earlier, about 9 months coming in the same place. So it's both tactical as well as strategic.
So the value of the committees is about being able to dig deeper into the detail here. This is my appeal to everybody really, to make sure that you've got that representation on the committees, because it's going to be really important. You know, you can see when we come to the board, we have a limited amount of time with a large board of people. You know, what are we going to drill down into? I think we will have to drill down in more detail on some of the performance issues here. But the committee is a great chance to do that. So just an appeal, particularly if you're non-exec members. I think we are now. I think, Sarah, we've got a really good representation. But, I mean, for example, I've been asked to speak to the governors in UHBW about what the ICB does. One of the things I'm going to talk to them about will be that their responsibility is to hold the non-exec directors to account for the performance of the trust. And to do that, the non-exec directors have to understand the system. So there's going to be a greater imperative for your non-exec directors particularly to be involved in the performance conversation and the other areas of committee development as well, so that they are cited. Now, I know it's a challenge and we've got lots of things to do, but I think hopefully we will start to see that it would be great value for you to be able to invest in that. So thank you to everyone. Is there any questions or any points you want to make? The performance reports have been circulated. I think Alan said it, our performance by way of productivity and delivery is not great in the southwest, and it has to improve, particularly in SSG.
I said to the non-execs, but I think this is really important for the executive as well, is that we work across. I think Julia made the point earlier on that we should be duplicating effort and that we should, there's a number of big areas that we need to dive into and that we need to coordinate across committees and sometimes to duplicate our presence in order to get those decisions done.
Thanks, Alan. Any other questions? No? Okay, I'll move on to the finance like So if you want to start us off and then Steve perhaps can
Thank you. So first thing to say is this is the first time that we've got this sort of system of finance report. It is for the NHS system. So at the moment this is all statutory NHS organisations, which we know as an ICB we've got responsibility for the ICB's financial position, but also for the NHS financial position. And the idea of this report is that it is, you know, it comes back to some conversation we've had earlier about how we've got a single version of the truth. This is a report that will be going to every board of all of our NHS partners, so that we're all able to see the same information. And we're very happy to have feedback as well on the report. Over the rest of this year, we really want to get to having an integrated finance and performance report, because a lot of the things that you'll see coming out in this report are sort of very similar to some of the issues that you've just highlighted. So workforce is one of the key issues, for example. So important to draw that out. This is obviously because of the fact that the ICB is only created on the 1st of July. From next month, we will have a section that is more in-depth about the ICB's financial performance and the system performance. Because of the changeover of organisation and the establishment of the new ledger, there was just a difference in timing, so from next month that will be there as well. So the key issues to sort of highlight here, you'll remember that we have
signed off as a system a balanced financial plan for this year. We know that we're doing that through use of some non-current funding, so it is really critical that we are delivering the plans that we've got this year, because underlying we have an issue as a system of about 76 million deficit and our underlying position. So really making sure that we are delivering the plans we've put in place so that we're not deteriorating that further. So probably the two key issues to sort of highlight this month is, and it is month 3, so there's more work to be done, but at the moment we're not delivering the level of savings that we would expect, and particularly not the level of current savings. And so that is one of the key areas of focus, is to really make sure we're doing that. There is some more work that we're doing as directors of finance across the system to make sure that we're able to describe not just the impact of the savings in this year, but the full year impact of them, so that we can understand whether or not we are helping or deteriorating that underlying financial position. So that will be coming into our reporting from not next month, but the month after. So we'll be able to report on that. But really needing that focus on every organisation to really keep that focus on the recurrent run rate position and making sure that we are delivering those savings. The other area is the one that we can see, can't we, that the workforce is a major challenge. We've got a target of achieving a sort of agency cap rate. Now, there are debates about the agency cap and how that's been spent, but at the moment we're spending more than we did in 21-22, and that absolutely, never mind what the cap is, going beyond 21-22, I think will have us under a lot of scrutiny as an ICB. So really needing to keep on with the work to think about what our alternatives are to that agency provision. Those were the two key areas that I wanted to draw out. Obviously, there's more work going on to look at in-year recovery plans, and we'll be bringing back more information next month on that as we develop that further. In terms of elective services recovery funding, which is another area of complexity in the plans, due to the impact of COVID, we have had confirmation that for the first 6 months there won't be any clawback of that ESRF funding, recognising the additional challenges we face that weren't anticipated at the time that the operational planning parameters were put in place. So I think those are the key issues that I want to draw attention to.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Sarah. And Steve, perhaps again, cover the issues of how you develop the committee.
Yeah, so the first thing to say is the committee clearly is one that's got a fairly wide format. So we're looking at funding our money, our people, our investments, crossing estate and digital. And all of those things come together. One of the things that we're really conscious of is the reader crossing to other committees. And I think we're going to, as an ICB, have to start working in a smart way to make sure that we're joined up across, and that's a real focus. Savings plan, absolutely essential that we're all focused and deliver on that. If we don't, we're stuck up a whole raft of problems for us going forward, and that will impact on all of our partner organisations. I think that we're also very clear that the performance element, which has already been spoken about, is linked to clearly the funds and the people. And again, shared ownership across the system. It's a point you keep raising, but we probably need to keep re-emphasising. We have to work this as a system. We have to work together and jointly own, as well as be accountable in our own organisations for the bit that we play. But there's a join up across. I think when we were looking across, we're tracking off, and Sarah's already said it, on a couple of things, we'll keep a close eye on those. I think we're also looking at how we can develop the reporting to bring things together, so that combined reporting is going to be essential for us, and that being shared back into our partner organisations. So there is a single truth, critical. So we're working off one set of data. I think I'm concerned that we're carrying some very big risks at the moment. I think we have that workforce risk, which will continue to be a pressure. I think we also have the possibility, as we get into some of the impacts of the cost of living and energy, potential risks that will come in from social care and care providers as their costs start to shift. That will add to the cost, I suspect. We will have to manage so movement of services. I also think the way in which we develop our thinking around use of estate and digital to try and help change the ways we do things is going to be critical, but that's a longer haul, that's not a quick fix. I also think as we begin to really get a grip on health inequalities, we'll also see shifting patterns in terms of where we need to spend and how we need to spend. I also think we'll start to see some more pressure on our drugs costs, and that medicines management is going to be key as we open and see more health inequalities requiring support and intervention. So I think this is an emerging picture, early days, but I think we're on track in terms of beginning to understand how this system can really work effectively together.
Thank you, Steve. I'll open up for questions in a second. We had a conversation in the Med Group yesterday about how we are talking across all areas of the business to make sure that we let them know what the right hand is doing. The second was about chairs of committees being at the risk and audit committee, so we understand what the risk appetite is when we're going into the committees. And the third one, Shane, was around performance reporting. I know many members around the table would have a performance pack that would contain workforce, finance and performance data. We haven't got that yet. And I think that's probably one that's worth actioning really, that we are presenting that as a collective system-wide, so you're able to compare and contrast against the different pressures. So Sarah, that's probably one worth capturing for us. Any questions for Sarah or for Steve? No? Okay, great, thanks very much. We'll move on to the annual report of accounts then. Shane, I think you're presenting that for us.
Yeah.
So this is really just to, this is really a placement of the CCG. So this, the annual report and accounts were signed off previously by the Audit Governance Risk Committee of the CCG, but it's really in lieu of what we would normally have done, we do have an annual general meeting. It's really to make sure that we've got a mechanism to get all these into the public domain. So doing that through this public meeting to bring it to the board. So I think there's nothing particular that I wanted to add on that. It's really careful just for making sure we've got that transparency and getting it to the public domain.
Okay. We require to receive them, so is there any comments anyone wants to make? Sure. Yeah, I think Sarah, that's right. All the pressures of closing down the CCG and creating the new ICB just don't have enough time as yet as well. Okay, thank you. Well, we'll do the updates now. You've had the minutes circulated from the ICB committee. Some have met more than others. I don't propose we go through the minutes. What I'd like though is that you've heard Steve and Ellen talk about the progress of their committees, but for Alison, Jaya and John to talk about where their committee is, how they've assembled membership and where it's going next around them. So I'd like to come to Alison first.
Thanks very much, Chair. We had one shortened business meeting in July which needed a time urgent agenda, but the full meeting of the committee will be proper for September. I'd like to thank all colleagues for encouraging volunteers from their organisations. We've got 3 non-executive and elected members who have offered to join the committee: Alan Holland, Assistant Council, Anna Cheese, and Sarah Burley, which I think all of those people will enrich the meetings just a few things to look at for the July meeting. The minutes aren't here because they haven't been approved by the committee. They will be next time. The big thing, one big thing for the board is the progress of delegation of pharmacy, optometry and dental services to ICB to next year. That means that future liability for those services will sit with the ICB, I should say, for an historical liability will sit with NHS. There's an enormous amount of work that executive college and teams are doing in terms of getting us ready to accept delegation of those services. committee able to approve and be really clear about assurance about progress against the delegation. All sorts of considerations will need to be taken into account, similar to primary medical services, which is delegated to some of these places. Some really good expertise in LCD, but there are some risks along the way, which needs to be worked through. A big financial risk at the moment, which I know they need to work through in terms of the allocated budget and the outstanding a couple of years ago, not matching, so there's a bit of a gap. But what we do know at committee so far is there are some significant challenges, particularly in dentistry, nationally, with practices handing back their NHS contracts and people, children and adults, not being able to access NHS dental care. Locally, we're not cited committee on the numbers, but there's no reason to think we would be part of that national issue. Not just a concern for dental health, but actually wider health as well, on top of that. To that end, NHS England have created a major transformation programme for both dentistry and pharmacy. Slightly more details on dentistry from the Group Committee. A major transformation programme, and the ICB will be held to account for delivering the actions from those. So again, all will be cited and also assured of the detail we go into the committee. So the assurance is really important for us in the transition of delegation, but also the transformation of the services going forward. One of the other key areas that the committee is focusing on is delivering the primary care strategy. I know Julie mentioned in the previous meetings here about being cited. There's a lot of very important information data around hospital services and the committee, and as David said, we will work through will want to be cited on some of those. Primary care strategy, one of the main factors around workforce to repeat the theme, some real challenges in workforce. What we have seen at the committee says that the primary care element is under pressure as much as the rest of us. So we will be keeping an eye on that. Two specific papers just to pull out performance information. Committee approved the service specification for enhanced health checks for people fleeing Ukraine. This is specifically GPs working with local authority colleagues to offer.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
I think I'm quite sure. So this is enabling GPs to evaluate individuals with health plans. Likely is that care has been interrupted during the war, and we need to understand what primary care support, mental health support, trauma support, safeguarding issues there are. For Hall's information, we saw a committee at that point there had been 1,500 visa applications from Ukraine to our patch. 1,300 visas have been issued and 1,000 people have arrived. Just in terms of assessment. Along with the programme of the specification, we saw some good risk management there. The other area I wanted to go out in the national plans, we saw some enhanced access plans. These are due from the primary care networks related to primary care networks. And they're local plans. We've done a lot today about local, and it's really good that primary care networks are creating their own personalities with a consistent framework. All 18 primary care networks are working in their locality footprints, and we were assuring those council progress. There were still some gaps when we met in July, but we found some were really submitted, I think, yesterday, and we delegated authority to submit those to executive colleagues. Some risks in there which the committee are very excited on, one being actually the provision of enhanced access, can't stabilise actual access. So in terms of assurance, it's good to see the risk highlighted and mitigations of that in place. So I think that's probably all I wanted to say about, but I do think the connection between committees, sorry to say it again, the connection between committees is just going to be crucial about which committee can do things like platform of others or people have to work together.
And we need to coordinate that, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I think as much as so duplicated communication, or so some of them will have to, but first full meeting in September and we'll be ready for this. That's great.
Ms. Alison, any questions for Alison? Okay, thank you. Jane?
Right, so people committees come up a lot because we have to work with these committees. There is no system without our people in terms of scale, like we have to start, the workforce of around 3,000, 1 million people served with what we've got. We know that the key issue is that there are not enough people within our system to serve the population we have, and to keep the staff we have and attract more. Everyone's already spoken about the challenge about data, and not using the same data. It's a big issue here. I keep asking questions, and I'm not sure I'm getting answers yet. It's still early days, and I have confidence that we will be working with, we will apply that, and again, working across it's also interesting that we know more about the population we serve than we know about the issues facing our workforce, and we need to know what those issues are for those people. 35% of our workforce is staying less than 2 years, and health is the number one issue for our staff. So for every measure that we have our population, we need to correspond with the workforce that we deliver. We have issues in terms of EI, 50% of our workforce is female, but zero is actually for our result. So again, we need to have that. In terms of how we're operating, you know, of course, we have people who serve I'm replacing Sarah, so not really well in terms of addressing some policy issues we will be having. It's intended for our group committee to meet alternately as the committee be 1 month and then SBS returns. So one internal facing, one across the entire system. We will be meeting both on the 7th of September, so both elements will be meeting to review terms of reference, to review the governance structures for these committees, and to review what business as usual is going to be done with this. For the ICB People Committee, we intend to review and review terms of reference for the Staff Partnership Forum and the Institution Council, and of course review, receiving review recommended and recommended ICB People Strategy for the ICBS People Committee, we'll be reviewing and reviewing the terms of the ICBS Program Board, its underpinning program governance structure and its our committee will also receive details of the ICBS program priorities and measures and we'll have a look at the proposed structure before we hope then by October that we operating as usual, business as usual for the rest of the committee, and then that's where we are at the moment. Lots to get my head around, especially given how it was done.
Okay, thanks, Jane. We've got a meeting next week, so you know, in all the committees, we need to make sure we've got the right membership there and the right clarity of purpose. Just so board members are aware as well, we will have a policy, diversity, inclusion and standing agenda item on this board for the next meeting on, and there will be a paper under the next board on the introduction of an independent advisory group. We discussed it prior to the ICB being established. I'm at a stage where I can bring that paper back now, and so that will give that rigour and testing around quality issues for us, which I think will underpin everything we do. But the People Committee will play a big part in steering that. There's already been quite a lot of really good work done there across all of our partner organisations, and we just need to make sure we're harness that. Any questions for Jaya around the updates so far on the People Committee? Or any points you want to ask for the board, Jaya? Alan?
No, it's probably not necessarily to do, possibly go back to Shane again. I think every committee chair has mentioned workforce issues, and you mentioned that you've got, I don't think the People Committee can solve every sort of concern that you've got going forward, and take time to get a rhythm. So just a question on current workforce group that is within the RCB. I'm confident that that has all the information, skills and knowledge of the system challenges to be able to really address some of the challenges of the resilience situation.
challenge is enormous. And when you look at some of the both the workforce availability, skills, the way the workforce are feeling at the moment. So the reality is each individual organisation understands those challenges, works around their own board of that. There are regional things we are doing, but it is, as you say, it's every single conversation we have today that comes back to the overarching workforce challenge. And that's both in terms of nationally the people promise and the people strategy, all the way through to what's our people strategy. We don't have that. We give running. We don't have our people strategy. So at the moment, I think the challenge is really well understood. It's whether we can, in the short term, make changes to address some of that challenge. But absolutely, people in that group are fabulous, and they're working locally as well as across the city.
Yeah, and I'd add that we really need to look at the system.
Yeah.
And the real challenge is that when an active system, you can't see the different parts, and just getting to what the activation mechanisms firstly, and then you have to kind of prioritize based on what we're having to do and how we can
Thanks, Alan. I mean, we're never going to have time for to go into the depth that we need to, so the committee's going to have to do that for us. We may arrange some seminar deep dive stuff as and when the committee start to emerge with the issues we will look at, because this is critical to everything we do, isn't it? Okay, thanks, Jay, that's really good. John, I'm conscious we haven't met yet as an audit risk. Is there anything you want to bring to our attention?
There are a few things we're already doing from side of the committees in audit, I think it's 5 times a year. First meeting is being arranged in September. We've been working on the membership, and I think we've got a representation on board from all the so we're keen to have local authority representation and also representation from other our organisations. It's coming together really well. My thanks to Joe Wall, who will be representing local authority colleagues on the community, and we have just one members one and probably 2 farm organisation members to join. So that's I think that would be helpful. Just reflecting back on the effect they did this week with the issue outside as a common interest, it's certainly the opportunity to have things that actually hoping to build upon what the operators plan. So I'll also be looking to bring system audit chairs together periodically just to cover areas of interest and try to avoid duplication. And element of my role is also Sarah and I to make sure we just to work out our best to policy stuff. We have internal auditors in place. They were appointed by the CCG in 2019, and they relate, of course, to the ICB. They still got some time left on the contract. And similarly, our County Court Services also just had to provide assurance that those advisors were in place. And one of the last acts of the CCG audit committee was to agree internal audit and some flexibility for this transition year. So the auditors are continuing to work to that. The external audit contract has expired, and we will conclude that we need to go to tender to ensure that we're getting good value and services fit for purpose. So that selection process is on the way. That document was in October, and it's not impeding the agreements of the CCG or the amendments of the SCB, because that will all take place and we'll to kick off and we will complete advice. So I think that's basically what I'd like to share with this question.
Okay, John, any questions for John? Progress so far. Okay, well, we'll keep you updated on that, and thanks, John. That's really clever. So, remuneration committee, anything to update on?
Just nothing to update apart from Electrise to set remuneration for the newly appointed ACB executives, appoint vacancies role, matching their CCG roles for ACB, also on recruitment. We will need to meet again in September to approve the national PSM pay award, which will be effective from 1st of April. So,
Any questions around Okay, thank you. So, the final item before I go to any questions public attendees might have. Is there an update on the Integrated Partnership Board? But first of all, big thank you to Mike Bell, who was really gripping this. Those who know Mike chairs the Health and Wellbeing Committee in North Somerset. I attended the first Partnership Board, and I'm the deputy chair on that group. We think this is a big meeting. It was even bigger, and I think it's going to get even bigger again. So there's an awful lot of people there. But what I would say is that it's progressing well. One of the challenges for us is to make sure that the strategy being set by the Partnership Board is reflective of what we're doing in here in the ICP. But I think that's my job and Shane's and Seb and the team to make sure that we have got the read across. But we meet with Mike on a regular basis to make sure that we are updating each other on both sides of the business, what we're doing here as that sort of delivery group, and then what the Partnership Board are doing by way of setting strategy. So Seb, I'm conscious we're about 5 minutes over time now. Thank you everyone for being succinct in their updates. But I think you're going to give us a quick update on Partnership Board before I open to questions to the public.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I've got a few handouts as well. As part of the press, we've got some emerging insights from the first phase of strategy development. I think they've been emailed around as well, but actually looking at your leisure at the time. And I think when I went around the table, just to make sure, I've said that the working integrated care was a program director and supporting integrated care partnership board to develop the system strategy at the moment. It's sort of about the process, the goal of this board in it, to flag that we're inviting you to a partnership day on the 18th of October to participate in the shaping of the content and to give you some insight as to the emerging outputs from so it is a legal requirement that the Integrated Care Partnership Board sets a strategy for the system. First iteration of that has to be published in the final draft form by December. That means the working paper must be published at least by December. Then after December, we've got some work to do to create a public-facing document to get that signed off by partners and then assimilated with our joint forward delivery plan by end of March. What's the role of this board in that? Well, this board is a founding member of the partnership, of course. Jeff sits on the board, so the board will be involved in the decision making. Board members, I hope, will be involved in shaping the content, and we will have a role in delivery. So that's the role of the board in the strategy. Where are we now? At the end of the kind of discovery phase of the process, what we call the deep understanding phase. Looking at the data and insights are telling us about population need, and that's the first and foremost task, because the other point about legal requirement here is we have to have a strategy. Well, why? Well, we have to have a strategy because we have to set out how we're going to respond to population health and well-being need in the NHS. This discovery phase, first and foremost, is about understanding need, but also the views, hopes and fears of our population, the operational constraints that we work within, the existing strategies and plans that we have to build on, as well as the views of national policy that we have to take account of. The Partnership Day on the 18th of October is a really important moment in the process, where we'd like to bring members of this board together with members of the Partnership Board and other partners to take stock of the outputs from this deep understanding phase and to participate in decisions about prioritisation. So, which parts of the problem are we going to go after trying to solve, with what sorts of strategy, how we're going to go after the problem, and where we're going to focus now and next. So I'd invite into your inbox as well to the 18th of October. The emerging insights, in a sense, it's telling us stuff we already know. We have an aging population. We have demand in our health services, particularly driven by age, but also multi-morbidity. Multi-morbidity is associated with things like deprivation and ethnicity, as well as aging. Are we tackling all of that sufficiently now, or are we able to consider that? Therefore, the insights present significant opportunities as well as challenges. I like to get excited about these opportunities because they really are significant. The biggest reasons why people die prematurely in our area are because of preventable diseases. So prevention is a huge opportunity in our area. Prevention, of course, and disease and deprivation are all interrelated issues. So in order to prevent and tackle disease, we need to contribute to tackling inequalities, working in partnership, and wanting to recognise the clustering of these factors. It's the same people, it's the same rules, it's the same streets, it's the same but the data really does illustrate not just the challenge, but the size of the prize. There's an example in your handout about what it looks like from a hypertension perspective. It's showing how we can really make a difference in just 3 years, focusing on conditions like hypertension and arterial fibrillation to prevent heart attacks and prevent strokes, prevent deep drive in the NSSG. But I wish it was easy for aims. In order to do that, we're going to need to engage with communities that may not necessarily be engaging with us. And we need to be doing it in a culturally sensitive way. At the same time, we're going to need to manage the demands presented now for people who are already over 75, living with multi-organ conditions, for our society as well, our services today. And one final point before I shut up. When we look at what's driving ill health in the younger generations, it's very different. And the overriding message is that it's anxiety, depression, driving impact of ill health in our younger generation. So that mental health challenge, that anxiety, depression associated with the social factor based on population is a challenge in the future we need to address now. I'll shut up, Jeff. I know I had second questions.
Thanks, Seb. I mean, you whistled through that, but there's a lot in it. I know how hard you've worked around it. I mean, just a question to board members, really. Previously, we met with chairs and chief execs. That's now separated, and that your chair's now in the partnership board, and you as chief execs are sat here in the ICB. I think generally we've got a fair clarity on the purpose of the ICB and the purpose of the partnership board. I'm not sure that it's quite as clear for some members. So we have a responsibility here in the ICB as a statutory body to be cognizant of the strategy set by the partnership board. We're not accountable to it. But my expectation as the chair is that we will be, cognizant of it and assuring the partnership board that we're delivering against that strategy, which is the stuff that Seb is helping to formulate. But just any questions really on, that alignment between the two? I'll come to you in a moment, sir. Let me with the board first. Any questions around it? No. So any questions for Seb about presentation given on partnership board? I suppose to me then the appeal is that partnership day on the 18th. The more people that can attend that, the better. We've got the next partnership on the 15th of September in Portishead, which is, again, it's probably a less formed stage than we are here at the moment. But big thanks to Seb and the team and Ellie for how they put the structure together around it. But if there's no questions on it, I will go to.
One point, Jeff, I think what it highlights and gets back to our earlier conversation flow. We need to focus on the next 6 months. We need to make sure that we can do it in the winter. This is the prize. This articulates the prize. The fact that we've got to manage winter is one thing. But if we can't get upstream to adverse childhood experiences, if we can't get upstream in terms of drug, alcohol, then actually we're just going to keep on the cycle. So our job, I believe, as the ICB is of course to deal with tactical stuff now, of course it is. But this is the reason we exist. And we've got to take this strategy and turn this into our 3 to 5 year plan as opposed to our 6 month tactical to get through it. Genuinely excited about it. This is the reason we exist as the ICB.
What's in there?
You might be surprised, I'm going to say this bit, but so I did notice to make sure we've got early years in here as well. I'm really pleased to hear us talking about the anxiety being experienced by our adolescents, but actually where I really open the eyes is early years, working with families and children and making sure we get them started off the right foot. I'm not sure we've got that in yet, but I'd love to see it in there, please.
Yeah, I just like to mention really just to thank Seb for the presentation, but also being so close to the Shane, what you were talking about earlier on, what the lessons in mass vaccinations, and having that running alongside is what we need to do for the next 3 to 6 months.
So I will, and hopefully Shane will create a link between partnership board and the ICB, make sure that we're not heading off in completely different directions. But if you're getting information information. I'm meeting with chairs, but if you get information back from the chairs that you want to check out, you know where I am, and you know where Shane is. So we just want to make sure that we are communicating effectively. Okay, I've got just over 5 minutes before we close. Sarah, I just wonder whether I'm going to come to you now, sir. I just wonder whether you could capture the actions that we've had from this morning. I don't know whether you've got them in. Yeah, I just don't know whether there's anything we need to reinforce at the end of the meeting, just to check back over. Okay, all right, well, I'll circulate it. Okay, so I've got 5 minutes before we close, so I've got a bit of questions from members of the public. So you've waited patiently. I'm conscious that normally, normal protocol with this would be we ask some written questions, and then we'll try and answer them here if we can. But over to you. If we can answer your question, we will. If I can't, we'll get a written response to you after the meeting.
The annual report has the sustainability bit in it again, which I've been critical of the last 4, and this one, in my opinion, isn't very much better. But I don't think that happens very much now because we're moving on. Now, the green plan is supposed to be produced, well, it's supposed to be produced a few months ago, I think, actually. The question is the green plan going to be published soon? And will the public have a chance to respond to it in some sort of open way or some sort of anything like this?
So that's the green plan, yeah?
The green plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have 2 staff with, and I'm just thinking sorry to see if it is on the website already or not. But it will very shortly be one, so absolutely, I'll make what I can do is make sure that we circulate a copy to you, but it will be on our
Will
website.
there be some chance that the public can respond to it in some sort of format like this? I mean, you've got 7 years left to sort it, right? Pakistan shows you the sort of problems you will get. I'm a chartered engineer by profession, and the engineering institutions and the publications are full of these subjects now with the attempt to solve it, and it's going to be extremely difficult. So we really got this society to face up to this and work out how we're going to do it. And this board's responsibility to do it in a specific area. I'm not sure how wide your responsibility is, but I would have thought we've got a sort of overall responsibility for green issues and the health services in the area. I don't know. These are all sorts of questions I'd like to ask.
So I think we've got an overall response around health and social care and coordination across Bristol, North Somerset, South Gloucester. Each individual organisation here could probably talk to you for some time around their plan around green and what they're doing and sustainability, because I know it will be a substantive item on every board member's agenda that's sat here today. So each organisation, some organisations here have got 15,000 people in them. So as a collective, we've got 50,000 public employees who will all have their separate approach to it, and it will have distinct differences depending on the area they're in. So from local authorities to health to other care providers. But Sarah, is there anything more we can add on which is the public consultation around what we're doing really?
Yeah, I'll go back and I'll respond to that in writing. Just check in with the team. So we do have now sustainability lead across the system that's coordinating the work across all of our organisations. And like I said, we have got the green plan that we've developed together as a system. So I'm happy to follow up and
so I'm just checking we've got your email address or your name and address, yeah? We'll make sure we do a written response to that, and I'll make sure it gets out to you. Sorry, sir, anyone want to introduce
yourself? Yeah, just a rhetorical question. I know I'm Frank Noble, I'm St Peter's Hospice, I'm not St Peter's Hospice, but you don't get the point. And it's been fascinating to see it. Thank you for the opportunity to come along. I've really got questions for myself. Shane was talking earlier about PCSE voice and how that gets in. So I think I need to take that away and figure out how we contribute to that. Then he was talking about data, and I need to take away that and think about how we contribute to the data. So really, it's a rhetorical bunch of questions for me, having listened to this, that I need to take away.
So I think that point around voluntary sector and how we're engaging, Mike Bell's doing quite a lot of work there, because we've allocated about 6 places on the partnership board for voluntary attendance on that board. But we've talked about how we engage the voice of our citizens, not necessarily our patients, because we are our citizens, but you know that's a health context really. But our citizens, the third sector, and our clinicians, to make sure that the way we're delivering the services are, you know, listening to what everyone is telling us. So, I think it's a good point. If there hasn't been engagement with our hospices, I'm sort of wonder why we haven't. So
Shane is coming. He's on his way.
Next week, is it?
A couple of weeks.
Okay.
I'm pleased to confirm that your medical director, nursing director are actively involved in the cabinet and will be direct to the analyst to work with. So really that's really good. So thank you for that.
I think it genuinely was a question for us. I think we can do more to engage and with it rather than just sit back and talk.
But I do think it's a very good point and a very good challenge, which is the system is not just about everyone sat here, it's about everybody who delivers services, whether it be private, public or voluntary. Okay, thanks, good point. Any other questions from our members of the public? No? Okay, well I'm bang in time. 1:30. There is food provided, and if you can stay to just have a quick sandwich, it's a chance to have a quick chat informally. If not, I'm really grateful for the time you've given us this morning. I think we've covered some really important ground. I think as the agenda starts to shape up for these, you know, we will make sure that we condense it into that performance assessment. But really grateful, and thank God for your time. See you all next month.